Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to BLAXODUS, another wonderful episode. Today, I have a wonderful special guest with me, who is my wife, Damilola Soyoye, and she's also a Black British citizen, and she's here to share our wonderful from our experience and perspective based on what this channel is all about and what we are set out to achieve. We'll leave the floor to Her Majesty.
Hi everyone, and yes, this is my debut on the BLAXODUS channel. As my husband has explained, we have a lot of amazing content coming for you over the next few months and years to come. So definitely stay tuned, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and I promise you're going to love the content. So today we wanted to have a discussion, an open and frank discussion, just kind of sharing my own perspectives and my own realities growing up in the UK, you know, as a Black British, well, as an Irish, Black Irish British girl, to be specific.
That's a nice combination.
Yeah. And, you know, just because one thing that we both hear a lot is that this Japa movement is, you know, spurred on by wanting to give your children, wanting to give. Hold on, water's cut.
Put your phone on silent.
So that this Japa movement has been spurred on by parents, you know, Africans, Nigerians who want to give their children a better life, right? Quote unquote better life.
Better.
And this better life always, for some reason, seems to be only available or possible in the UK. So, as someone who, you know, was practically born and bred abroad, so to speak, I was born in Nigeria, I was born in Lagos, but I was here from the age of, you know, left at the age of 3. You know, my parents left Nigeria around the age of 3. So, really, this is Europe is the home that I know so far.
Technically, yeah.
So far. So, so that's the discussion we're having today.
Yeah, as you've all heard already from the horse's mouth, that is what we're going to be talking about today. So it's not just going to be from one-sided view as you've had in our previous videos, because I've been the only one on the video, and now we have Dami also here with us. So we're gonna start by actually asking simple questions based on like how do you actually see the so-called like the new world your parents brought you into, and what was your reality, your own story, because their story is not really your story. Your story is primarily pertaining to you. So what have you seen in your course of growing up in the West, and when you think of that better life that the most Nigerian or African parents want to give to their children, was it actually obtainable, and what is your own story primarily?
Yes, I mean there's so much to get into, you know, with that regards. Because what angle do I even start from? Do you want to talk about the self-identity, you know, crisis that a lot of Black British children, you know, experience when they're growing up here in the primary schools and secondary schools, especially secondary schools, because you know teenagers can be very unkind. Now there's that perspective. Is it from the perspective of, you know, seeing your parents as you were growing up work so hard to which as a child you didn't really understand, right? Because you're not in the system as a working adult, as a, you know, member of society in that way. So you don't really understand why dad is hardly ever at home, and it's only until you enter the workforce yourself that you begin to understand, like, you know, mom and dad, especially dad, was just trying to stay afloat and keep his head above water for all those years that whilst we were growing up. And that's why he was so busy. That's why it seems like, he didn't have as much time as I'm sure he would have wanted to spend with us, except for those in our later years, in our, like, my very late, almost basically adulthood, like 16, 17, 18, that we started to take family holidays and stuff, that we could afford a family holiday once a year. But prior to that, it was really, the perspective of, you could bring your children here for a better life, but what you don't understand from as a parent, you're probably not going to have the time that you actually want to and need to spend with them. And not having the time to spend with your children because you're now in the UK or US, like it doesn't even matter. UK, US, Australia, it doesn't matter. France,
so the same system.
The Western system is the same, no matter what language, what continent. It's as long as it's a Western country, predominantly white country, it's mostly the same problems. So, the issue of not having enough time to spend with your children, it leads to so many other problems that people, especially Nigerian people and parents, are not even aware of. They're completely oblivious to, like, do you want to talk about the kids who we have seen in our very own hometown and our home city, where their parents are working, ungodly hours, long days, long nights, back to back, and then they don't even know what their children are up to on the streets. Their kids are out there on the streets. The teenage boys, black boys, and even black girls are running the streets, getting up to mischief, getting up to no good, gangs, drugs, sex, you name it.
Night violence,
night violence, everything. And it's not just even a London problem, although it's really, really bad in London. Sure, but it's not even just a London problem. We're Manchester, like, we're Mancunians, so we've seen this here as well, literally down the road from us. And it was, from multiple stories, the common factor behind them is the parents happen to not be around, not available for the child or for the children, and then they kind of went, wayward, is that the word? They went haywire. And so so that's one angle that we could talk about.
Time. You realize time was, like, extremely important in being in life of your children. Even though maybe, what about some people might say that, well, at least you are now exposed to a better system of education. There's no strikes in your schools. There's social amenities.
Let me tell you about the better education side of things. So again, as my husband always says, we are not oblivious to the issues on ground in Africa, in Nigeria. We're not delusional. We're not oblivious. We understand what's happening on the ground, but we understand the ways to mitigate those particular problems as well. And this is what we're going to share with you on this channel, so that for those of you who are watching and who are thinking of, BLAXODUS, or BLAXODUSing, if that's what BLAXODUSing
movement.
If you're thinking of it and you want to understand how to mitigate those problems as well, we will be documenting how we have, so hopefully it will show you how you can too. That's the point of this channel.
Good.
So in terms of school. So yeah. So I told you guys I came my parents left around 3, so moved to London initially by 4, and then stayed in London between 4 and 6, and went to Ireland from 6 to 12, and then Manchester from 12 till now. Wow. So that's
quite a movement. That's a journey.
It's quite a journey. So. But what I distinctly remember is in the early stages of primary school, and it happened to me in secondary school as well when I first moved to Manchester, but especially in primary school, because my mom told me this, so I know it would happen for a fact, even if I don't remember all the details, in detail. My mom told me this is what happened, that when I started primary school, because I'd had those initial, couple of years of education in Nigeria,
Yeah.
I was way ahead of a lot of the children that were my age mates when we were now in Ireland. I was way ahead of them academically. My reading, I could read a lot better than them. And my maths was really good at that age as well. So basically, the education, even though it was a short time, a few years in Nigeria, actually made me be quite far ahead than the Western Irish children that I was meeting right later on. And again, it's even helped me again in high school, because in the UK there's like set systems. I don't know if it's the same in Nigeria, where you have like
like class A, class B, class C, based on the like intelligence of the
child,
or
the academic intelligence, because we know intelligence comes in different ways now. But in terms of academic, intelligence, we had like top set, middle set, and lower set. So as you can probably imagine, it is what it is. So I was moved very quickly to top set in a lot of my classes when I first started high school here from Ireland to here. And I do believe it was because of those couple of years head start that I got in Nigeria, that still, and obviously with my mom's input, she was a teacher, that was her background in Nigeria. So with my mom's input as well, I do believe that's what allowed me to get into the top set in high school. So, and I say that to also move on to my next point, that a lot of the top professionals that I have met in the West, and that I have read about online and in the blogs and magazines that have done amazing things, a lot of them are Nigerian, are African.
With Nigerian educational background.
With a Nigerian educational background. It's
important to stress that, because
Absolutely.
Most people feel like when you think of a Nigerian education system, it's zero. Like, I'm a proud product of Nigerian education system. And personally, I remember when I got here, a lot of my peers, they couldn't keep up with me in any educational influenced conversation. Even the utilization of grammars, the geography, the media, the politics, medicine, science, technology. It's wonderful what we have back home, because most people say you don't appreciate what you've got until you lose it. We do understand, as she said earlier on, the ASU strike. We understand like some degree courses in Nigeria, which is supposed to be 4, could turn to be 7 or 8 or 6 because of the inept government that we have. However, there are several ways that we can mitigate that, which we're still gonna touch on the long run. So don't let anyone tell you that Nigerian education system is zero, because we can talk about Nigeria because that's where we're originally from. I don't really know much about Ghana or about Sierra Leone. However, as our home country, Nigeria, everything Nigerian or made in Nigeria is not technically bad, because we see the so-called Western world and their pupils and the students and their curriculums is not that like extremely wonderful against what we have. So like from the educational perspective, now let's move to living the real life. So when you became
before we do, I just want to touch on the identity crisis.
Yes, you did say that before.
So the identity crisis that a lot of black children in the West face. So you as a parent who wants to Japa and bring your child or your children, or even your unborn children, you want to have them here in the West, in the UK, be very ready to deal with and help them through identity confusion, identity crisis, and not really having a clear understanding of where they're from, or this place, this place called Africa, this place called Nigeria, not having a clear understanding of what is Nigeria all about, because growing up in the West, our exposure to Nigeria or anything Nigerian was secondhand. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It was secondhand information. It was going to parties or churches in the UK, so you get a diluted version of the culture, you get a diluted version of the traditions, even of the language,
Yeah.
even of it's a diluted version. And from there you can't really learn enough about your background, your culture, your history, just from that. And then the thing is, you have to remember is, no matter I grew up here. I'm sure you can tell from my accent and everything. However, those those other children, the white children, they will still be very quick to remind your children that they are not one of them. They are not one of them. They are not from here. No matter how
whether they have the
well-spoken
British passport or
yes, no matter what passport they have, no matter how well-spoken or whatever accent that they have, even if you have a Scouse accent, you're Scouserian. That's a thing now, Scouserian.
Oh, nice.
Nigerians with their Liverpool accent.
Nice.
Even if you're nice Scouserian, like you will be reminded, your children will be reminded one day that they are not from here, that they are not British, that they are not English. So you have to be prepared to deal with that, and that confusion, especially in teenagehood. It's very, very, very important and critical, those few years, because that's when a lot of other problems, a lot of things can.
That's actually the primal foundation years of each and average individual, because you need to know who you are, where you're coming from, to be able to venture further in life. So from the identity that you talked about, how about racism? You basically grew up here, and we all know what the British government did of recent, because they did a little checks on themselves to say Britain is not racist. Is not racist. That's what British government said. So based on your own history and your own upbringing, were you ever exposed to racism in this country, in the school, at workplace, and what kind of support did you get? And did you open up to your parents that are busy trying to just walk back to back to put food on the table, to keep the lights on and the house heated? So what was your experience in quotes when we talk about racism?
Unfortunately, growing up in the West, it's impossible for you not to have experienced racism, even before you understood what racism really is, right? You would have seen it, you would have experienced it. One of my earliest memories, is unfortunately years ago. Obviously I was I was young anyway, maybe 8, 9 or 10. And my dad at the time was working really, really hard as a security guard, a security officer at a hospital. In Ireland. So he's even looking after people who are sick and vulnerable in a hospital. And a group of white men came to unfortunately attack my father at that time. And they attacked him. There was at least three from what I recall from that time that it happened, against just my dad, who was just doing his job as a security man at a hospital, looking after people. So unprovoked, as I said. So and then you start to question as a child, because your dad is a hero in your eyes, especially at that age, right? And then you question, why would anyone want to hurt my family? Why would anyone want to hurt my dad, my parents? They're such good people, and they work so hard, and they mind their business, and they go about their business and work really hard. So that was probably one of my early experiences of that. Me personally, again, when I was in primary school, one or two of the kids, but it was one who said it, but there were a group of kids, and they asked me, because the school I went, I was the only black child in the whole school. So my experience was quite
Unique.
it was quite unique. I was the one black child in a whole primary school in a small town in Ireland, County Clare, Ennis. Shout shout out to I went straight to the point. Shout out to Ennis, County Clare. It's a beautiful town. I love Ennis. And shout out to anyone from Ennis, County Clare. So, but this was the early '90s. So let's be real. We keep it real on this channel. This was the early '90s. The mindset, the mentality back then was completely different to how I'm sure Ireland is today. Hopefully today. So anyway, going back to the '90s, this black child asked me if I had fallen into mud. If I had fallen into mud.
This black child or this white child?
A white child asked me. A white child asked me if I had fallen into mud, mud on the floor, like brown mud, and if that was why my skin is brown, because I had fallen into mud and I don't shower and I didn't clean myself, and that's why my skin is brown, as opposed to all the other kids whose skin was peach.
And to them clean.
And to them clean and peach and white or whatever you want to call them. So you can imagine, as a little girl in primary school being asked that question, what the hell do you say to that? How do you answer that question? And so that's where my first instance of racial or racism, even though we were children, and prejudice, and and you can just imagine that she didn't even, because I know what you're thinking. Okay, children ask things innocently and they're just curious. That is fine. Children are innocent and curious, but you can tell when they have been influenced by racist adults. Okay, because if that child had just stopped and asked me oh, have you fallen into mud, and is that genuinely why your skin is a different color, that could be understood. But then to make it insultive and say it's because I didn't bath, do you get what I mean?
Dirty. I'm
dirty. That's why. So that type of language, a child just can't come up with that thinking
until it's been influenced.
Until she must have heard it from the family, the home that she came from. And several instances like that. I can't even recall them all. I can't list them all, but that was the attitude.
Yeah. So one of our viewers would like to know, has it ever, from the verbal, or let me put non-physical, has it ever transitioned into something physical, like racism, to you personally? You've talked about your dad, but to you personally, have you ever been racially attacked?
When yes, because that would have been in secondary school, and again, this is especially the parents who come with their slightly older children. You need to be aware that you're not only taking them from you're not only taking them from one system where they already know and they're already comfortable. Now you're throwing them into another system when they're already developing, right? They already have their friends, they already have a bit of their identity. Now you're throwing them into this whole mix and then expecting them to just carry on from there. So basically that's what happened to me when we moved from Ireland to the UK. So now you can imagine being an Irish black girl in Manchester. I stood out. I was very unique. I don't have the Irish accent anymore, as you can probably hear, except if I speak to friends in Ireland, in County Clare, then it does come out a bit. But apart from that, no, I don't really have it anymore. But in terms of that, yeah. So because I stood out. When you stand out in secondary school, it's nice initially, but then you are a prime target for bullying, because you stand out. So that did carry on in high school to a degree, and I was attacked once by two white girls in high school, physically. So yeah.
Did the school did anything to support you?
No.
As you're a minority?
No.
And then did you open up to your parents when you got home, this is where you brought me. This is the so-called better life.
I just remember.
This is what happened to me. So
I didn't even. Okay, I did towards the end. Initially, I didn't because when you're in high school, secondary school, you don't want to. You don't really want to like stress your parents, right? You don't want to. You feel like, oh, you should just be able to handle whatever is going on, which is such a it's the wrong thing to do looking back. So please don't be able train your teenagers in a way that they can open up to you and speak to you, because honestly, you don't want them to feel like they have to keep everything to themselves. So initially, no, I didn't. Based on that reason, I was thinking like, no, I could handle it. But this particular school I was in, the bullying just got worse. And this particular school I was in here in Manchester, it was a very white high school, and there was some mad attitudes around black people and the few black students that were in the school at the time. I remember in one of the classes we were studying Africa. Well, we were learning about Africa, and then literally one of the kids turned around to me and literally asked me and the few other, like 2 or 3 of us in the class, oh, so in Africa, is this like you guys live in the trees, right? You either live in the trees or you live in the mud huts. That's where you guys live in Africa, right? That's that's how Africa is, right? And then basically, but not said, again, not asked in a genuinely curious way, like, hey, what is it like in Africa? How is the lifestyle? It's genuinely like, yeah, this is like you guys live in the trees. And
that's it.
And that was it. And when you're a teenager, it's so confusing when someone asks you that question when you're a teenager, because you don't even
have any clue.
You don't even know about your country, your culture. So genuinely, even if they were genuinely asking you questions because they were actually interested and curious, you don't even know what to say properly, because you were never even really taught so much about your culture, and you were kind of dissuaded or discouraged from even really
trying to know about it,
knowing more about it.
So do you think you gave this vibe that from the black community that forget about Nigeria, there's nothing to write them about, it's useless, it's bad, it's never gonna get sorted, and that's why maybe they chose not to show you where you're coming from, to be able to stand on your own?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think a lot of other parents are making that mistake in terms of like once they've Japa'd. Is that a word?
Yeah, the past tense of Japa and the Japa'd. Yeah, it's nice.
Once they've Japa'd, then they kind of forget everything back home.
Damn.
It's and it's like, yeah, but these children that you're bringing here, they need to know back home, because they will never 100% fit in this country. Never.
That's a fact from your own experience.
Yes, they will never 100% fit in here. Now you've taken away the other part of them that would have made them unique in a good way, that would have made them proud of where they're coming from, that would have given them the knowledge that they need to answer certain questions from the other people, from the British kids, to defend themselves, and be proud of their heritage.
Their origin,
but now they don't even have that, so they don't fit in here, and they don't even have that
like
over there.
Somewhere in the middle.
You're somewhere in the middle, and it's a really difficult place to be when you're just in the middle. You're neither here, you're neither there, and it's a really difficult place to grow up. And that was a lot of my experience. Never fitting in really 100% in Ireland, UK, but not quite fitting in, obviously, in Nigeria as well, because, and especially before I was married, because, I didn't really know much about Nigeria. I went to Nigeria for the first time literally when I was 24. I was in my early 20s, it was really late. I was probably 20, trying to remember now, 23 or 24. It was really late, 24. So you can imagine, and growing up, and not even just from so many different places. Any time Nigeria was talked about, it was in a negative connotation, unfortunately, by not by anyone in particular, by everybody, by everybody who was Nigerian.
So what about like the British media? How do they portray Africa, portray Nigeria?
Forget even the British media, even the people
black
that you saw,
community.
the black community, the African community, the Nigerian community, anything that they would speak about Nigeria, anytime that they would, it was negative. So to a degree, and even for me and my siblings, we would grow up thinking, because we would see like we would see like aunties and parents and the older people, the adults, packing clothes, their old clothes, old used clothes to send to Nigeria. So, which is a fine thing to do. It's lovely to reuse your clothes and give it to people who could make use of it. That is fine. But with those types of messages, we get the message that Nigeria is like a
dumping ground,
or a second hand,
or
third world place, a second hand place. It's not. Do you get what I mean? It's those things and behaviors that we have to be mindful of, especially us now, we as the adults, and any you guys watching this, if you are in our age range or even older, even younger, to be mindful of the messages that you are passing to the young, subconsciously to the young people, to the young next generation of Africans or British Africans or whatever label you want to give. So things like that. So we really grew up thinking like, it's nothing really to write home about, and then there's a lot to this.
So with that background, when you eventually made it to Nigeria, were you shocked based on like what you've been hearing is not everything that Nigeria had to offer, or were you like oh, so everything they've been saying is actually true? This place is rubbish, this place is a dump, this place has no life, this place is just nothing to write home about. Like, what was your experience when you landed at Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Ikeja, Lagos?
Let me put it like this. That first year I went back to Nigeria in my early 20s, I have been to Nigeria every single year since then.
Nice.
That should tell you I loved it. I had a fantastic time. I didn't even want to come back. I genuinely did not even want to come back. Wow. I was like, I have been lied to for 20-something years. The propaganda, the media, and even unfortunately the black community, the Nigerian community. I was lied to, not deliberately, not placing blame on anybody at all. It's the mindset of the Nigerian community at that time, especially for us growing up. That's what obviously led to all these messages. But no, I just felt so lied to. I felt so betrayed. I felt so upset with myself that I had only stepped foot in this country at 24, 25. And I felt like, imagine if I had, been coming earlier and, all through those years. And imagine if when those kids asked me when I was in secondary school, when I was like...
If you guys lived on trays.
When I was 13, 14. And imagine if I could show them, like, no, we live in big houses. And here's you go, show them pictures of, like, mansions and nice areas and beautiful areas and, and normal areas. Because not everyone lives in the mansion. Obviously. But normal areas, nice houses, middle-class people. I would have had those answers. And it would have made such a difference then.
Yeah, because it's nice you say like normal areas and everywhere, because there's no country, as most of our viewers know, there's no country that don't have their slums, that don't have their dirty place, their rubbish place. However, the power of the media cannot be underestimated and overemphasized, because in an average Hollywood movie, when they show Africa, or maybe you're watching Al Jazeera or BBC and they show maybe news from Nigeria, they will always show the slums. They've showed Makoko, Makoko slums in Lagos several times. They hardly show the nice place, but they immediately hit news from London, news from Washington. You know where they're going to show? The London Bridge, the Buckingham Palace, and so on. So when you go to Nigeria, then you saw the reality there were people suffering, obviously. There were middle class citizens, obviously, and there were rich people. However, from your own background, when you're growing up, you feel like it's just the negative part that's been just picked to teach you about where you're from. You felt like they've not given you the full curriculum about everything Nigeria really has to offer.
Absolutely.
To further solidify your stance and form up your identity, like this is where I'm from, these are challenges, but this is our positives, and hopefully as time goes on, things could be better.
Yes,
Good.
yes,
So,
absolutely. Because again, and that's part of the propaganda. Now we can bring in the wider media, because again, I feel like, and I felt like then those images were deliberately not shown. They were not shown to us, and I felt like it's all part of the matrix. Let's call it what it is. It's all part of the matrix, so that we don't see, normal and nice parts of our home country. Therefore, we would not be interested or inclined to go and visit those places and go and see what opportunities are out there, and go and try and invest out there, or go and try new things, or think of some solutions to problems. Again, we're not delusional saying that there are no problems in Africa or Nigeria. We are fully aware of all of them. But our mindset is, where there are problems, we want to see opportunities for solutions, and we want to see what solutions we can fill and offer. So I think if a lot more people had that same mindset, they would Japada.
Japada back home. And home could be Togo, could be Ghana, could be Senegal, could be Nigeria, Cameroon. So pardon us, our other African viewers. We talk about Nigeria a lot because that's where we're from originally. So now we've talked about your background, your educational background, your social background, and also when you are exposed to the raw fact about Nigeria, where you were taken from. So how about like a lot of people that want to Japa, that want to leave Nigeria to come for better life in the West? They feel like once they come here, they sell all their assets back home. Maybe they sell one of their houses. They come here, they work 2 years, they can build 3 houses back to back, and they work maybe 1 year, they have like £50,000 in savings. Because there are a lot of people with that. I'm sorry to say, is delusion, and it's also based on the media, what the Western media put out there, like everybody's happy, everybody's wonderful here. So from your own perspective, what is the kind of the work-life balance, the working culture, the ability to actually thrive working, not just trying to survive in the UK?
Okay, there is no work-life balance in the UK. Okay. That is the answer to that. There is no work-life balance. It is work. You know that song? Work. Literally. Like it's they call it the rat race for a reason. And that, especially when, I started working at the age of 15. 16. Literally, I've been working since 16 years old, my first job. And you follow the rules. You go to university, you get the job, as a nurse, and you do the whole thing, and then you start working, and you feel like, you feel like you've made it. You feel like you've done all the right things, and life will be better, and life will be easier and wonderful, and financially you'll be great,
set for life.
And you quickly realize, especially over these last few years, that is not the case. That is not the answer at all. And I know in one of your previous episodes, you were speaking about just waiting for a salary is not ever going to be enough.
It's not life.
In the UK or in Nigeria or in Africa or anywhere. And that is so true, because honestly, especially now here in the UK, there are people who are so unhappy. They are so depressed. They are so stressed, anxious, worried about their finances, and these people have jobs. These people
probably
have good jobs.
In debt.
And they have debt, and even
though they are making pounds. Back home, pounds is everything. Like, when you make your money in pounds, you are like a billionaire to a lot of people back home. Like, even though they are working, gainfully employed and making money.
No, because you make money in pounds. You're spending pounds here in the UK is what you don't understand. You're spending a lot of money here in the UK. Like, that could be that. That's a whole nother episode. Honestly, the expenses. I think you've talked about it.
Yeah, I talked about it a little bit, but we're gonna have a whole episode for just bills,
expenses,
bills
in the modern UK. Because honestly, I think like my message, especially when I hear stories of well-off, comfortable people, husbands and wives who had a nice lifestyle in Africa or in Nigeria, and then they sell everything they have, potentially to try and come here. And I just feel so sad. I just feel so sorry for them. Especially the UK of 2023. Okay, let's talk about what's happening now. The UK of 1995, 6, 7, when a lot of our parents came.
It's totally different.
It's not the UK of 2023.
Yeah, I can second the motion, because I came here almost 5 years now, and I remember just to talk about our electric and gas bills. Our gas bills were like, we were paying 50 quid, 60 pounds like a month, and we're okay. And now it hardly lasts for 3 days. So, and our earnings is mostly the same. And cost of living has gone through the roof. So like what she was saying, that most Nigerians or most Africans that feel like is greater and better at the other side, they need to speak to people that want to tell them the truth. Like Yoruba Sokwe, my language, Yoruba language, said that Otitokuru, the truth is bitter, which is a fact. But the truth is, you come here, you sell everything you have, thinking you work 1 year, 5 years, you making times 5. A lot of people here hardly have savings because they're just trying to survive. That doesn't mean they're not working. That doesn't mean they are lazy. That doesn't mean they don't have good jobs. We have doctors going to food banks. We have nurses having massive debt, like massive overdraft, and they earn good money. But what we don't understand back home in Africa is, when the Western government give you, let's say, £3,000 or £2,000 with the right hand, they take majority through the left hand with bills, taxes, and charges. Do you understand? And so, from your own perspective, as I said earlier, what now make you want to give this movement? Because this is our own personal journey back home to Mother Africa, back up to Nigeria. What really makes you want to, like, you know what? I think I've had enough. Even though your parents brought you here for better life, what made you decide to give it a try, to say, like, let's see what life is truly about on the other side of the world?
A range of factors, some of which we've touched on already in this video. But, the fact that when I enter the workforce, I have a
workforce as a nurse.
I have a quote-unquote good job or good career, right? I'm a qualified nurse practitioner, work in the mental health field, and I have done for many, many years. And to most people, especially Nigerians, when you hear the word nurse, you're a nurse. Oh my God, money don't come, money don't show. They feel like literally, they feel like you're swimming in cash. And it's like, even the nursing of 2014, 15, 16 is not the nursing of 2023. So people, let's talk about that. People don't even realize that the field has completely changed. The money is not the same.
What about
even in
staffing levels?
Oh God,
allegations,
that's a whole
losing your career because of one flimsy racially induced allegations.
That's a whole, it's true, and that's a whole other topic on its own. But so with me having a quote unquote good career, yet I saw very quickly that I would be on shift, and our shifts here I don't know if you've mentioned, our shifts here are
Oh,
like 12 hours average, some 14 hours.
back to back.
But yeah, 12 hours is like a normal, working day for healthcare staff. Nurses, qualified nurses, or unqualified support workers, or nursing assistants. So, as nurse in charge, I would still do my long days, and I saw very quickly that I would see, women, fathers, mothers, and they would just look so tired. They would look so exhausted on shift, especially on the night shifts, which honestly, those night shifts are evil. In and of itself, those night shifts are evil, and especially for our black people, because black people run night shifts in the UK healthcare system.
Because it's slightly more money.
It was mostly us. It was mostly our people, mostly Africans, mostly Nigerians and Ghanaians. Anyway, mostly Africans on the night shift, and I would just see them. They would look so exhausted. They would look so tired. They would look so sad and miserable, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And they would be juggling, like, children in tow. And I'd see the mum who would need to go do that long shift and go and, sort out her children, take them to school, do the school run, do all that, have sleep for maybe 3-4 hours before she has to wake up again, pick up the kids, rush in, doing this, doing food shopping, cooking, looking after the house, looking after the kids when they're home, then trying to get maybe 1 or 2 hours nap before the next shift that night. And I would see them do this like back to back to back to back, just to stay afloat. And it scared the heck out of me. And I knew from that point, like, I want out. I do not want that lifestyle. I do not want to start a family and not be present, and not be in the family, and not be present, and not have the time to actually spend with, our now daughter, and because I'm just working back to back to back to back, it was hell. It looked like hell, and I wanted out. And then I would see, and this is the funny thing, then I would, like, family, I would speak to family, and my family, his family, and we would. And these are the people who are saying they're suffering in Nigeria. Every time we would speak to them, they would be enjoying their lives. They'd be relaxing, they'd be chilling, they'd be eating, they'd be at a restaurant, they'd be having drinks.
Because they have time. They have time. Time is the most important currency in life. Time. There's no time here, that's a fact.
They enjoy more in Africa than we do here. That's a fact. That's a fact, because they have the time. Yes, some of them may say they don't have the money, but honestly, if you are innovative and creative, and
create wealth for yourself,
you can make anything you want for yourself. Even if you're not so innovative, but you want to learn from other people who have done things already, and you want to replicate it in your own way, you can, and you can make the money that you need to have the really nice lifestyle that you deserve to have, with the time you deserve to have. Because I started seeing, like I said, I would see, and I just fast forwarded myself, like, back then, a few years down the line, with me as a mother and having a family, 1, 2 or 3 kids, and I was like so scared, like, oh my God, this is awful. This woman looks so exhausted and tired, and yet she can't really. She's stuck in the system. She's stuck. There are so many Africans stuck in this system, and they don't even realize. And even the ones who realize it, they can't do anything.
They can't really, because they have so much in the system anyway. And you've not touched on the fact that this kind of work-life balance that is not present here also put a strain on the family life, based on people's relationship, like husband and wife. Because there was a time when we were still solidly in the matrix, in the system. We would work back to back, 2-3 weeks, we've not even spent time with each other. We don't even know what is happening in our lives. Then this eventually, if it goes unabated, leads to breakdown of relationships, breakdown of marriages. We've seen a lot of new Nigerians coming in through maybe visiting visa or student visa, any type of visa, husband and wife. Then 6 months, 8 months down the line, relationship is dead. Why? Because they don't have time to spend with themselves. They don't know what is happening with their children, which leads to the gang violence, night violence. They don't have time to spend with their husband and their wives. Then they start arguing. then coupled with the stress of trying to stay afloat, the bills, the taxes, and the long working hours put massive strain on the family. So all this wrapped into an enigma gave you the push that you should see what Nigeria is all about. And because we are above 30 now, and technically we are no longer in the morning part of our lives, we are going. So you feel like this has given you enough reason to uproot yourself and go to this Nigeria that thousands of us are selling everything they've got to come back into this rat race.
Absolutely, because this place is a rat race for the majority. Now, unless you are part of the 5%,
1%,
1 to 5% who are not in the rat race, who are not in the matrix, unless you're part of them, you're pretty much in the rat race. And even if you have a quote unquote good job, you're just a higher level in the same rat race. In the same matrix.
Your income increases, your taxes increases, your taste increases, you want a bigger car which you don't own, which you get on credit. We've talked about that. You want probably a bigger house which you don't also own, even though you think you own it. You just change your landlord from a private landlord to a bank landlord anyway. So thank you very much for sharing your wonderful experience and your existential being here in the Western world. And what word of advice, or probably not advice, like just word of marble, will you have for potential Africans or Nigerians? The ones, no, there are two types of people now trying to Japa. The ones that probably have not achieved anything in their life and they are still very young, because age is also a factor. And they were like, okay, I can't make anything happen in Nigeria, maybe let me try the other countries in the world, because we humans, we are engineered to wander to a better place for ourselves. So, and there are also the others that we are more particular about, the ones that have their duplexes, their bungalows, their cars, their businesses thriving in Nigeria, and just because they get a visa, either visiting visa or student visa, they want to let everything go in a flash just to come here and be entrapped. So what advice or what word on mouth, because we are not an advisor technically, we're just sharing our own truth and our reality and let people make their decision. So what words of marble would you like to share to those kind of people who think the Western world is a paradise?
Well, I'd say to the former, the young people who feel like age is on their side and they want to explore, and they feel like they can they can achieve what they want to achieve in life, and it must be in the West. I would say that's not true. that's false. You can the life or the lifestyle that you want to live, or you want to create for yourself, you can do that at home. You can do that exactly where you are if you get creative, if you do enough research, if you reach out to the right people. There are so many options and opportunities these days, especially thanks to the internet. I don't even believe, even if age is on your side, you need to run halfway across the world. But if you just want to do that to explore, that is fine. But please, especially if you're coming here as a student or to learn something, come here to the West, get the knowledge, the skills and the experience that you want to get, use it and implement it here in their system for a while, but come back home. Go back to your home and implement those skills and the knowledge that you've learned here. Like for the ones coming as a student, for example, coming to do something specific, use that knowledge back home. That's what I would really love. The brain drain that is happening in Africa, in Nigeria, is shocking, and it doesn't need to be like that. And it's like, okay, if you need to go abroad, for some few years to, like I said, gain the knowledge and experience, do so. But bring that information, knowledge, and skills back home. That is the only way that our country or our continent will develop.
Well, some may say the governments are not helping in a way. Like, we have insecurity in Nigeria. There's no electricity. People say there's no water. There's no this. There's no that. They might say like, yeah, why would I want to come back and put in my own best after spending so much to gain this knowledge and wisdom and whatever technical know-how. But what people don't understand is like, where there's problems, there's more opportunities. Like now, imagine someone creating the Uber of Nigeria, that or even a car sharing app that you don't have a car. Okay, there's a way you can manage yourself to move, or like it's so hard to even describe direction for people back home. Like you hear that, hey, to buy today, mosholashin, to at the roundabout, turn back, why be don't lo, why straight. Like the government have not created what we call zip code or postcode. Somebody could invent that for Nigeria as a whole and monetize it. There are different opportunities, only if you use what is upstairs. The West is not green, it's not extremely like a paradise as we thought it was. You've heard it first time from someone that spent all her life in the UK up to now, because she made the decision with me to try our wonderful country. Even though we have our issues, it's still our country. No matter how many green passport, red passports you have, you are a black man first, you are a Nigerian first. And once something happens to you, they will remind you where you're from, regardless of who you are. We remember Anthony Joshua, before he became a boxing superstar. He was jailed for one thing or the other, I can't remember. Then in the news, they were like, oh, there's a Nigerian-born British man in a jail because
they do that a lot. when you are doing something good for the British or the
country,
West, for the country, then you will be called British or Black British,
American,
or Black African American or whatever. The minute the news is not so positive, they will remind you, that same human, that same person that they wrote about and called Black British, they will remind them that they are a Nigerian
first
who happened to be bred in the UK. They will make a clear distinction in the media for everybody to know. So it's those messages that should make you think, okay, even if I have a British passport, my children born and bred here, one word, Shamima Begum.
Yeah, and even now there's a new law that's been passed now that your citizenship can be revoked without you even knowing. So you could probably go to Lagos and on your way back you landed in Heathrow or Manchester. Then they tell you that, you know what, you can't get into the country again. All your labors, everything has been in vain. Or your cars, your house that you thought you had, the money, everything is gone.
That's what happened with Windrush.
And exactly,
the Jamaicans.
The best example is the Windrush.
The Jamaicans. The Jamaicans.
They were used and they were technically dumped.
Used and dumped.
That is how the West has been built, from slavery to neo-slavery, which we have now, because we are the ones selling everything we've got and running to the embassy to come and enslave ourselves here. And thank you everyone if you've stuck with us to the end of this program. We would love to have you at the next episode, with or without our wonderful majesty. Just know that she's always in the background, and this is going to document our own transition from UK back to Nigeria. And according to what she has been saying, you should learn something that you like Yoruba say, which means you don't rush to judgment. Like, even you've made the decision to move, you don't just sell everything you've got here and run back home. You need to put everything in plan. Even if you decide to come here by fire by force, you don't just rush and sell everything you have in Nigeria. Also, you need to put everything in plan. Do your research, know what is happening here, know what is acceptable here, know how this place is, then you make your informed decision. So when reality whack you in the face when you come, you'll be like, oh yeah, I knew this was gonna happen. So thank you very much.